Hello, welcome back. Here today, it's the F1 Manager Sim League, and we have just arrived in Mexico. Well, that was me being a bit optimistic. I wish I could be doing it in real life, but who knows, maybe in a few years' time, eh? But yeah, it's the Mexican GP. It is round 18 of this 24 race calendar season. I can confirm to you lot, the season finale is in just over a week's time. So yeah, let's get into the grid in 2 sets. Okay, so yeah, qualifying results. Fairly straightforward. Valtteri Bottas lines his Haas up on pole, with George Russell lining up in P2 with Théo Pourchaire 3rd, Sergio Perez 4th, Oscar Piastri 5th and Lando Norris down in 6th. This V-Carb 4 points ahead of George Russell in the championship. Could easily flip on its head here today, with Charles Leclerc lining up P7 with Carlos Sainz in 8th. Lewis Hamilton is then 9th with Max Verstappen in 10th. That's Hamilton's best start since Singapore. But then it's Fernando Alonso just outside the top 10. He's P11 with Daniel Ricciardo 12th, Tsunoda in 13th, Albon 14th. Antonelli took a 3-place grid drop after a collision in Kota with Hadjar. He's 15th, Liam Lawson 16th, Gasly 17th, Colapinto 18th, with Oliver Behrman in 19th due to a further grid drop for another collision in Kota, and then Isaac Hadjar 21st or 20th, as my 2 drivers are going to DNF. But anyways, let's get into it here in Mexico.
Well, it's great to have you with us. What will happen next? We're about to find out at the Mexico City Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
Okay, let's quickly DNF and DNF. And now we can set to go here in Mexico. Valtteri Bottas gets a good start. He's covered off. And I've pressed the wrong button for about the 15th race in a row. Russell's really been pinched in the first few corners. He's down in 4th, with Norris being overtaken by Charles Leclerc, so it's not been a decent start at all for either of the championship contenders. As now they go through the middle sector, Valtteri Bottas leads to Théo Pourchaire, then Oscar Piastri. The Red Bull really trying to find his way up through the standings, with a step back, to say the least, in the previous few races by Red Bull. As DRS is now enabled, hopefully we'll see some action, and we already are, as there's George Russell promoting himself onto the podium now, as he's overtaken Oscar Piastri in the Red Bull. And you can see just further back, Lando Norris trying to get past Charles Leclerc, as there was an opportunity which wasn't quite seized. But anyways, they keep going. Théo Pourchaire tucked up right behind Bottas nicely. They're 2.6 clear of George Russell. Pourchaire fastest lap and DRS here to the outside for turn 1. He's cleared it before even considering about braking. As there we see Piastri, who was P3 this time last lap, P7 now, as Lando Norris is starting to carve his way back through the field. There's Carlos Sainz to the inside and up into P7 goes the Williams. The Saubers, they were 9th and 10th, they're now 11th and 13th. Just shows how poor their start sequences have been this year. As Leclerc and Perez having little tussles there, Perez will adopt the lead as Pourchaire has pulled away. He won out in Texas, if I'm right. No, George Russell won out in Texas after Porsche led most of it. It was a good redemption for Porsche. Can he go a step higher here today? As he's really trying to catch up with Sergio Perez in the drivers, who's 20 points ahead of him. But forfeiting 16 here today, if results were to finish out as there's Norris, making it a bigger dent for Sergio Perez. He's now down in P6 as Norris into the top 5 now. He leads the championship by 4 points over George Russell, who is being overtaken by their Charles Leclerc. Up into the podium, Russell now the next car for Norris, but it's became Perez as Perez has picked up the place with some DRS assistance. Alonso having looked to the inside there. Antonelli, however, managing to make his way up into P9 here as Oscar Piastri now drops to P10. But now Alonso DRS on signs to the outside, swoops past, and the Aston Martin picking up form a bit more again, as they've kind of been on and off over the last few races. As Alonso, he's back up to his usual self as he's dueling with Carlos Sainz, the other Spaniard, over some healthy points for both teams. Williams, of course, trying to guarantee a P7 in the standings, whilst Aston Martin, if I'm right, in a fight with likes of Haas and maybe even Sauber. Now Alonso, what can he do? He's gone to the inside, he's up into P6. No, not P6, P7, my bad. As Norris, he's going to have a go on George Russell. Wasn't quite able to, as Charles Leclerc is your new race leader, ladies and gentlemen. Really showing some pace in that Red Bull here. But is it going to be like Cota, where they had a moment where they were the quickest car, but then it dropped down to V-carb again? As now Porsche, some DRS on Charles Leclerc, to the inside he goes, and up into the lead he goes here, as the V-carb readopts the lead of this race, as Lando Norris has moved himself into P4, whilst Russell's gone down to 5th, and Perez even dropping to 7th, behind Fernando Alonso now. And you can see Perez really struggling, just like Piastri has been. Perez now under threat from the Haas of Andrea Antonelli. As currently between Haas and Aston, there's 7 points, there's 33 points ahead, which is Sauber. And it could be a headline if Sauber lose that place come the end of season, but Verstappen moves himself into the points, really trying to help the manufacturer as much as possible, as Perez now 9th. Some cars just plummeting through the field, and it seems like it's the Ferraris at the moment who just really can't get to grips with this track. As there's Antonelli into the top 6 here. He hasn't scored a point yet this season, however coming close in numerous of occasions. Could he do it here today? As Antonelli fends off to the inside. Fernando Alonso, however, regains P6. As long as things stand this way, Antonelli should be fine in this race. As Verstappen, he's getting close and getting eager for some points here, as Hamilton, on the other hand, only P15. He was P9 about 10 laps ago when we lined up on the starting grid. He's now miles off it, really showing how the Sauber is struggling for form. Anyways, Sainz defends Verstappen, but Verstappen will still get past either way. Will Sainz be able to fight back though? No, as Verstappen gets a double dose of DRS just to slipstream it allows him to stay with it though. Just for some context, there are a few rumours about retirements at the end of the season. It's Sergio Perez, Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. So yeah, hopefully will be confirmed come the season finale, as Yuki Tsunoda, to the outside, he ends up moving himself past the Williams into P10 as there's a yellow flag out on track. I cannot see what for, but it says crash involving multiple cars. It is Ricciardo and Albon, as it looks like. It was just a bit of pinching through the chicane, nothing too major. But anyways, back into this race. Perez versus Alonso versus Antonelli. All to play for P6 here. As Albon and Ricciardo, no further action for that pinch in turn 1 and 2 by the Williams on the Alpine. As Alonso picks up some handy DRS to the inside. Surely it's P6? Yes, yes it is. As the Aston Martin pushes on. As there is Antonelli just squeezing past by Sergio Perez as well, with Sainz in the middle of a very lengthy fight at the moment, as he is trying not to fall back any further than 11th, because he'll really harm his chance for points. As there's Antonelli versus Perez through the stadium. Great showcase for the fans in there, but Perez, the home hero, will lead out of the two and drag themselves along a bit. As now Carlos Sainz, he's going to get some DRS to help him pull towards Verstappen. Is there going to be any major moves back in? No, not yet. As this race is really going to be dependent on being able to keep the tyres in the right window. As you can see, so many on soft, and I'll be honest, 5 more laps at most for them, whereas those on mediums maybe give them 7, and then Hamilton on the hards probably also give him 7-8. But Piastri, I see going to about the halfway stage on them hards, and hopefully can put himself in a position to push high up into the points. As there's the 2 Ferraris dueling just like they done in Kota. Perez up into P5 now, as the 2 V-Carbs run 1-2 for the second consecutive event now. As they've done it out in Kota, Porsche led the 2. However here, Lando Norris and Porsche in the middle of a fight, as Porsche promotes himself to the lead. As this has been how most of the 1-2s have played out this season. Porsche leading Norris, all them squabbling. It's hardly been Norris leading it on pure merit. As there's Porsche being overtaken by Norris on the outside there, as the fans really roaring as they see these cars cruise by. As Charles Leclerc into the pits, he's the first to pull the trigger in this race. Where is he going to come out? By the looks of it, around P18 or whatever. He's just behind Pierre Gasly in P19. Could play dividends in this race, but let's see how Leclerc does. He's more than capable of working his way through the field. As there's Hamilton jostling with Oliver Behrman for P14 here. Can the Aston keep it? Yes, yes he will. But Hamilton tries to hang on and will eventually get the place. As Théo Pourchaire has now entered the pits. As Russell lines up a move to the outside on Valtteri Bottas. As now it's Ferrari in second. Porsche, quite poor placement I'd say. He's behind both Williams and now even the Sauber and Alpine. He's got to work his way through this field. With immediate effect, he's already got past Ricciardo. That's a great start. Hamilton's also finding some life in his race now. He's up into 11th, finding his way, carving through the field. Quite easy, as you can see here, even going to try and move on Carlos Sainz. Wasn't able to. Andrea Kimi Antonelli now into the pit lane. Is he going to come out ahead or behind Charles Leclerc? Probably behind. But how far back? Quite far back. As Sainz, he's going to come out plumb last there. Behind Isaac Hadjar. Antonelli, however, just ahead of Isaac Hadjar. Which is a good contrast for him. Porsche, he's really cut his way through the field. He's now behind Hamilton, who somehow leads Sauber. But he's going to get some DRS here. Not going to move yet, as there's Albon pushing himself past Max Verstappen. Lando Norris, Alonso and Yuki have now pitted. Will Lando beat his teammate out of the pits? No, he won't. He's been rather heavily undercut by his teammate, as Charles Leclerc picks up fastest lap, as he's even ahead, as there's Piastri losing P4 on Porsche. As the V-car now on pursuit to maybe even threaten Sergio Perez. Here's a reminder of tyres. Russell probably in this lap. Yes, he is. What about Valtteri Bottas? He continues on, however. As now Russell crawls out of the pits. Pit limiter now let go. And there's Lando Norris. That just shows how poor of a stop he's had. To have Russell only 3 or so seconds behind. And very much his biggest threat on track. As Charles Leclerc in amongst this pack, which Norris is tagging along at the back of. I'm pretty sure Leclerc does have the pace to overtake Albon this lap. As now to the inside goes Leclerc. Up into P6 as Norris does a mirror move up into P8. Bottas now into the pits. Porsche, second place now. Provisional lead. As Charles Leclerc, a good 10 seconds back, I'd say. Which does hurt their odds of winning quite massively. As Terry Porsche really showing he is probably the rookie of the season. Probably the driver of the season, in my eyes. It's going to have to be either him or Valtteri Bottas, because they have had some amazing results. As Norris and Russell have both provided a championship to remember, to say the least, as there's Norris defending Leclerc into turn 1. Leclerc wasn't able to get past, but he will try again. To the inside goes the Red Bull. Will he get it done round the outside? No. Lando Norris. Just more traction, better line. Able to hold on to P4. As Oscar Piastri really is going for one stop here. I think Sergio Perez is as well. As that kind of looks like favoured strat. If they can get to about that 35, do the rest on a set of mediums. But that may not be approachable. I actually think it's an option though for the Red Bull of Piastri. As this race kind of then becomes Perez versus Porsche. Two cars fighting over 4th in the standings. And based off the way they're going, they're gonna well, Charles Leclerc's in mix. If Perez wins, he will move up to 3rd. If Porsche wins, Perez has to outscore Leclerc by 3 points in order to move himself up a place. So there's quite a bit to filter in. As this championship very much getting closer and closer to the wire. As Norris and Russell are still going at it. relentlessly for the championship in their own respective ways. As I'd say they're still in each other's races still. Russell a bit more faded out, but yeah, as does Porsche, fading Perez out of this fight for the lead, as Leclerc now overtakes Norris, who has fastest lap for good measure. Just that extra point to add some security in this championship. Antonelli is the lead Haas, which is a big shock. Could Valtteri Bottas dispose of his more youthful teammate, the 18-year-old from Italy, really doing his all to get P8 here? Well, not even P8, just a point. As it just shows how much the rookie has struggled this season. He's been in so many points positions across the course of the season, yet just unable to execute it when need be. And if Mercedes can pick up one extra point than what they've got at the moment, they should overtake Alpine in the constructors as well. Currently 34 points to 33 in that constructors battle over 7th. But yeah, as Alonso to the inside of Piastri, up into P6, but Bottas will follow through and gain P7 as well. As there's Carlos Sainz, he could have put a hole in Tsunoda's dreams here, but chooses otherwise. But yeah, we are rapidly approaching lap 30 now, and Piastri and Sergio Perez both yet to pit in this race. They are doing quite well on the hards so far, almost made it 30 laps, and look like they can go another 5 or so, as Alonso continues to fight with the Haas. They're split by 8 points in the constructors. No, not in the constructors, in the drivers. In the constructors, it's 7 points if I'm right. So yeah, it's rather close between the two constructors. However, Haas seem to have the upper hand here. But Alonso to the inside, up into P6 goes the Aston. Bottas cuts the corner in order to avoid contact. George Russell, however, he's tucked up quite nicely behind Charles Leclerc, as Norris has really dropped out and checked out here, hunting down his own teammate for a possible win in Mexico, which, if he can do that, can completely revolutionise the odds in this championship. As there is Russell practically executing the move on Leclerc. He gets it done there, and now it's time to just try and get past his own teammates, which we've seen numerous times this season hasn't been easy. Perez tends to be a brick wall against George Russell. But will he get away now, knowing the urgency Russell's in to try and catch Lando Norris in this race? Russell will get DRS here, probably the best opportunity to do it without Perez losing much time, but Perez defends Russell into turn 1, Russell eventually getting past, but that will leave Sergio vulnerable to Charles Leclerc. Will he go for it? Not yet. Just a bit too far back is the best way to put it, as there's Yuki Tsunoda fighting Oscar Piastri over P10 here. Piastri's strap really fading now and failing itself. Charles Leclerc, can he now get past Sergio Perez? DRS assistance for the Red Bull. To the inside he goes. Perez can't really defend much, and that's the Monegasque up into 4th here. As now the next best fight is probably this one. P10, Oscar Piastri versus Yuki, and then Carlos Sainz as well for P9, Piastri mechanical fault, which could possibly sway it slightly more in Sainz's way now, as we have officially hit, I'd say, the halfway. We're in the middle 3 laps. But look at the wear on the Ferrari and the Red Bull. I think if they were to follow the other strategies, wouldn't be too bad at all. But they are risking it, trying to make a 1 work. It's not over yet, so we will have to wait and see as to whether or not it does work. But Piastri really struggling for some pace now. He's probably going to pit in the next lap or so, as the cars around him just picking up the pace a bit now, as it does look like it will be a pointless race for that second Red Bull, who, if starts racking in the performances his teammates been doing, could easily go for P6 in the drivers. As there's a massive crash, it's Yuki Tsunoda and Carlos Sainz. Insanely massive crash.
Now is that Yuki Tsunoda?
As you can see here, Yuki Tsunoda, he just gets hot-headed on brakes. It's not Sainz, it's Antonelli, who's done so well to get himself into a points position, and that's his third. Yes, third DNF in 3 races now. His form has dissipated, but that's worked out quite nicely for Sergio Perez. He's not had to waste a set of tyres there, but that's the negative. Yuki Tsunoda and Andrea Kimi Antonelli out of this race, as it's currently a yellow. Looks like it's a safety car, as most end up pitting. Clean double stack there. Perez free pit stop more than anything, as Yuki Tsunoda gets handed a 5-second time penalty. Everyone coming in the pits by the looks of it. Will it even be the likes of Pierre Gasly? Surely Colapinto and Hajar will as well. But you can see quite a few on the hards. The top 3 all choosing the harder compound. Then it gets a bit more diverse through the midfield. Softs, mediums, hards being put on. Those on softs and mediums probably going to end up going 1 more stop. Them on the hards going to the end with ease. But yeah, Teo Porsche. Yeah. Oh, great timing, Rodrigo. Great timing. Hello. Yeah. You've just missed the cause of safety car. Yuki Tsunoda, hot-headed on brakes, into the back of Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Sees them both out of the race. In an event which could have saw Mercedes move up into 7th in the... No, not 7th, 8th in the Constructors. So that's a big mistake made by Yuki. Yeah, you are fucked. And these costs could really damage your team next season. Maybe you have to sign likes of Mazepin and Maldonado for like 2 mil each. But yeah, safety car is now ending. Track is clear. We're going to go back to green flag racing. Remember, the top 3 on hards, then it's kind of evenly spread throughout the field. mediums, hards and softs all in use, as we are back on the way. Théo Pourchaire covers off Norris, but as a result George Russell is going to have a go, as there's a Leclerc. It's a mini sandwich there as Norris plummets down the field. Bottas onto the podium, Charles Leclerc into 4th. I will summon Yuki to my office for me to maybe fire him. That is a big threat. But Pourchaire has stayed composed. Norris not as much. Norris down 3 places on that restart. He went from 2nd to 5th. And now Fernando Alonso is piling some pressure on him in that Aston Martin, as Oscar Piastri gets a slightly more severe mechanical fault. Anyways, DRS is now back enabled. Will we see another move unravel? We can see slightly further back there was Alex Albon having a glance on that 7-time world champion you just briefly saw of Lewis Hamilton. But anyways, through the middle sector, the slow speed triangle section, and now into the ace section. Will George Russell close enough to spoil Pourchaire's party for 2nd race in a row. Last race, Russell made a late move to take the win, and Russell is now in the lead as he's set fastest lap. Rodrigo says I have to get Mazepin and Logan or Latifi. That sounds like an amazing lineup. World title after world title with that, honestly. I might have yeah. But Pourchaire, he's recovered quite nicely against Russell. He's back in the lead, and Russell's out of DRS. He's now under threat from the Haas of Valtteri Bottas. He won for the first time since he drove in a Mercedes back in 2021 at Miami. He can win here today, as he's promoted himself to the lead, but he's on a set of softs, so chances it lasts, not much, unless a red flag comes perfect timing. Then maybe he's made it work. As if you haven't spotted yet, Lando Norris, he's down in P7. He's really struggled off this restart to get these hards up to temperature. Those on mediums around him and that, just making easy work out of him. And now it looks like it's time for Williams to even have a say in it, as Valtteri Bottas fastest lap of the race. There's George Russell to the outside, he's into P2, as Albon has made his way up into P7 here. As that Williams has really came to life recently. Sainz has been doing most of the heavy lifting this season. But now, Alex Albon's actually scoring some decent points. He scored 2 last race, he's currently scoring 6 here, as Norris drops to P9. If I'm right, in Canada, Lando Norris missed out on points. Now here, he could do so as well, as there's so much going on up here. Perez overtaking Fernando Alonso, home hero, into P5 for Ferrari. As there was even Charles Leclerc having a glance at George Russell. Every place Russell loses is an extra few points Norris gains in this championship. As now Leclerc swoops up into P3. As Pourchaire, he still has Sergio Perez to catch up with in this drivers, and also Charles Leclerc where possible. Currently Pourchaire 20 points behind Sergio Perez and 24 behind Charles Leclerc. That's of course going to change this race, as Pourchaire currently P2. It's guaranteed 6 points as long as neither of them end up on the podium, which could really see Pourchaire slot himself into a charge for P3 come the end of this season. As yeah, Norris and Russell have flew away in this championship. They're already 100 points clear of Charles Leclerc. As talking about Leclerc, up into P3 for a moment, but Perez has capitalised. Sergio Perez now onto the podium at Mexico. It's a really big statement for him to make at his home crowd. It's going to be massive motivation for the Ferrari. But will he stay there? Of course, there's about 26 laps left of this race. Porsche moves to the outside on Bottas and into the lead here of the Mexican GP. As Oliver Behrman, he's having he had a brief moment where he could have overtaken Albon, but now you see Verstappen muscling his way up into P11 past Daniel Ricciardo in that Alpine. As while all this conundrum's happening, with Sainz moving himself back up into P9, Norris has recovered quite decently. He's now ahead of his championship rival, yet neither of them are in the top 5, but that can change here as Norris down the inside of Alonso up into P5 goes the V-carb. As there's Russell trying to follow on, but Alonso just able to defend with the machinery he's got. An extremely experienced driver doing amazing in a fairly lackluster car. But Aston aren't looking too bad. Alonso's teammate, who's only scored 1 point so far this season, currently looking at his 2nd point here, as there's jostling around the top. Perez now leads his home GP once more. Last time he led, he was on the hard compounder tyres in his first stint. He's now in his 2nd stint, and you can tell based off tyre percentages he's been managing. As there's a yellow flag out on track, looks like Oliver Behrman, who's had a spin there. Turn 5. Let's have a look. Just does it in the exit, gets throttle on, and just loses the back end. But yeah, Sergio Perez leads in front of his home crowd, as this is a race which could see him into the top 3 of the standings, as Ferrari favourites to win the Constructors, V-carb and Norris favourites to win the Drivers, by the looks of it. Oh yeah. George Russell up into P4, but Bottas will fight back through the stadium. Fans roaring as they see the Haas and Ferrari duel. And now into turn 1, Norris overtakes Russell, so does Bottas. As now could Norris pile some pressure onto the Haas? Come on man, I got this season, yeah. I'll be honest, the lineup isn't bad. Yeah, you've got a lot of money. But how much still lasts is the question. As there's Norris up into P4, cashing in some money for V-carb. But yeah, Rodrigo, that does beg the question, because you've got lots of money now. You've got like 50 mil plus what you earned this season. To be fair, you're probably going to lose more than what you earn due to how many crashes your team's had. I think there's an option that maybe you could have an upper hand in terms of who you can sign, but yeah, who knows. But then what I'd personally do, and if any other TPs are in this chat, re-sign one of your drivers, especially when you have 2 drivers for 6 or 7 mil, such as Gasly and Yuki. Probably re-sign Yuki as he scored more points. That's just my verdict. Yuki's got double what Pierre Gasly's got. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, lap 53 of 71 here. You can see Perez, he's burned up his tyres a bit more, getting a bit riskier when it comes to possibly seeing them tyres through to the end. But yeah, Norris piling pressure onto Leclerc now, who's going to be ready to pit sometime soon. Norris up into P2. As yeah, this race, it's going to be those on the harder compounded tyres who are favourites to see it to the end. That includes Verstappen, Sainz in 6th, 7th, Lawson, Gasly 9th and 10th, and then the two V-carbs and George Russell.
And what's that? A pit stop issue.
Pit stop issue. It only gets worse for Alpine. That's the nicest way to put it for them. It only gets worse. As Oliver Behrman, he was fighting for points around lap 43. He's now a minute off the lead. With a pit stop though, I believe. Yeah. But yeah, Lando Norris piling pressure on to Sergio Perez now. Is the Mexican gonna see it to the end, or is he gonna have to dive into the pits once more? I thoroughly believe it's the second one, and that's dive into the pits, as there's now 15 laps to go, and Norris takes the lead here in Mexico. The only drivers who probably need to pit again, yet haven't, Perez and Leclerc, 2nd and 4th. They are not going to make it to the end. Whereas the others should be fine in doing so. But that's really good for Lawson. He could gain some points in this championship, but also so can Gasly, if they can both hang on to a top 9. As Charles Leclerc is now in the pits as Perez and Norris swap places around. Where does Leclerc come out of the pits? He's behind Pierre Gasly. Is he going to be behind Bottas? There's the Haas, and he will be behind the Haas car. And surely that is a message to Sergio Perez that he may want to pit in the coming laps. However, he powers on in front of his own crowd. If he pits now, I think he could come out around P6, P7, and then recover to a top 5. But knowing how this save's been from time to time, he's probably going to come out 17th and finish 18th. Just, yeah. But yeah, Perez crosses the line for another lap. Lando Norris now to the inside. Surely it's the lead. It is the lead for the V car, but for how long? Because Perez trying to desperately hang within a second now. As you can see, there's a lapped Isaac Hadjar just behind him. Sergio Perez now into the pits in front of his own crowd. Where does he come out? Limping down pits now. Sainz ahead of him. What about Liam Lawson? You can see there's the McLaren catching the Ferrari. Perez just able to hang on though through the first few corners as Alonso sets fastest lap here. As this is an amazingly big chance for VCarb to catch up with Ferrari in at least one of the two championships. Well, of course in one of the two championships in the Constructors. Yeah, you're in points as fastest lap has just been given to Charles Leclerc. But with 10 laps to go, will Mercedes stay in the points? Will McLaren stay in the points? Because all the quicker cars are now coming through. But Lawson really trying to make it stick. He's hanging on against Charles Leclerc, making him fight that extra bit more. And therefore pile a bit more pressure onto that Red Bull. As Sergio Perez has moved himself up into the top 5 here. As there's possibility for Perez to find himself in the top 3 come the end of this race. He needs about a second a lap though on Teo Porsche. As there's Lawson back up into P7. Great move by the Kiwi. And now he probably wants to stick within DRS range of the Williams of Carlos Sainz. Just for the sake of it. Making it easier for the McLaren. As their form has really spawned in. Especially since Monza around 5-6 races ago. Peak community. Huh? But yeah, Liam Lawson, the Kiwi, fending off the Monegasque. Don't know why it took me so many attempts. But now, there's Carlos Sainz DRS on Verstappen. Lawson's also defending Leclerc with some. As Sainz up into P5. Verstappen down to 6th. Lawson's had a fairly poor exit. Charles Leclerc to the outside. Softs versus the hards. What's better? Clearly it's the softs. Just so much more traction out of the corners. And that's Charles Leclerc back up into P7. And Liam Lawson back down into 8th. With about 5 laps to go. Pierre Gasly, who Rodrigo was like, yes, we're in points. Yeah, rethink that statement, as that's no longer factual, as Perez has lifted himself into P3 here. And he's currently on the pace to even catch George Russell. But if he overtakes Russell, that's a bigger dent in George Russell's championship. So, will Perez play strategically and give George Russell the place, knowing that if he finishes here in P3, he will overtake Charles Leclerc in the championship? Actually, he won't, so he will need that place, and he's overtaken George Russell. Now, I think there's time, and based off the pace, you can see about 4 seconds a lap quicker. Can Sergio Perez win at his home GP? He hasn't yet so far in his career. He's heading to the end of it. And now, the hunt is on. Lando Norris rounding out final corner, so is Perez. You can see Norris off in the view. Will the Mexican win in Mexico? Dreams are still possible to come true, especially in stakes like these, where nicking them 7 points off VCarb could be the difference between them winning the Constructors and losing it. Perez 1.8 seconds back on Norris. We are entering the final 3 laps of this race now. 3 laps to go. Norris versus Perez, 1.2 seconds between them, and now it's within a second. DRS is coming to favour Sergio Perez, as you can see the tyre wear now filtered in, as Leclerc could possibly even overtake Théo Pourchaire in this race, which could be a really, really big loss for the V-Carb driver in this championship. But anyways, on to the penultimate lap we go. Through the final corner to start the penultimate lap now. Sergio Perez, DRS on Lando Norris to the outside, and he's passed. Into the lead goes the Ferrari, as surely that's the race determined. As, however, it's not determined over P4. Leclerc currently fighting Théo Pourchaire, who now has DRS here. Up into turn 4, wasn't able to make a move, and therefore hangs back in P5, waiting for a better opportunity to overtake, as Perez has really dropped the ball here. He's 3 seconds clear of Lando Norris. So it's certain we will see Sergio Perez as we enter the final lap here. We've got 1 more, maybe 2 more attempts from Théo Pourchaire to see if the places change. And now, currently Pourchaire hangs back. He will pick up DRS here though. Surely to the inside. He's gonna fight it through turn 4, 5, but he goes wide, and Leclerc hangs on to P4 as dreams are possible. Sergio Perez rounding through the stadium, through the final corner now, as he wins in Mexico, followed by Norris, then Russell, as this fight continues. But it looks like Leclerc P4, Pourchaire 5th, as Lawson, great result in 7th. For McLaren, that is a must-have result for the team, as now there's a fair chance they can pile the threat onto Mercedes and Alpine come the season finale, as we just wait for the other two to cross the line. Piastri has done so now, and so has Isaac Hadjar in P18. As just a recap of the results, Sergio Perez wins here, followed by Lando Norris, George Russell 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Pourchaire 5th, Bottas in 6th, Lawson 7th, up 9 places. Amazing drive by the McLaren. 8th is Verstappen, 9th is Carlos Sainz, 10th for Fernando Alonso, 11th Daniel Ricciardo, 12th Franco Colapinto, 13th Albon, 14th Gasly, 15th Hamilton, 16th Behrman, 17th, down 12 places, a massive horror show of a race, Oscar Piastri, 18th, last and not least, Hadjar, with Antonelli and Tsunoda both being unable to finish here, with Charles Leclerc fastest lap of a 1:16.0. For those who have watched the most of it, thank you. For those who have literally just joined or watched 10 seconds of it, also thank you. And that'll be me out for tonight. Goodbye.